Okay, I think we'll go ahead and get started. We are recording tonight. Hi, my name is Jean Service, and I am an Alumni Events Coordinator at the UNC General Alumni Association. I'm joined tonight by my colleague, Anna Brooks-Witchard, who works with our clubs at the GAA. We're excited to bring our Day in the Life event to you tonight with three recent graduates, Lauren Applewhite, Spencer Brown, and Diamond McKoy. And I'm going to let them go ahead and introduce themselves. But first, let me do a quick shout out. Thank you if you are a GAA member, because this gives, your membership gives us the ability to do events like this. And please stay tuned, because we do plan to offer more events for new graduates on different topics. So Lauren, if you would please introduce yourself.
Yeah, so I'm Lauren. I graduated in 2018 from UNC with a degree in management and society. And I currently work as a talent acquisition consultant with Duke Health right now.
Spencer.
Hi, everyone. My name is Spencer Brown. I graduated in May 2020 with a degree in business administration. I work for Truist Financial Corporation, formerly BB&T and SunTrust, and I am a senior care coverage analyst.
And Diamond.
Hi, I'm Diamond McKoy. I too graduated last May with a double major in business administration and African American studies with a minor in sustainability. After graduation, I went right into my master's of accounting, and I just graduated in May again from Wake Forest. And currently I am a staff accountant at Tulloch Management Company in Winston-Salem. But in the fall of this year, I'll be starting at PricewaterhouseCoopers.
So I would like each of you to answer this question. So what is the nature of your position in broad terms? Like, why does your role exist with the company that you are working for? And again, we will start with Lauren.
Yeah, so my position really exists just to kind of help find the right talent for various positions in Duke outpatient clinics. So most of the other recruiters that are on our teams, they're assigned to specific job families. So we have one who handles all of nurse recruitment, one who handles all of CMA and LPN recruitment, and then myself and another recruiter, we kind of handle everything else that doesn't really fit into one specific job family. So I work with everything from ophthalmic assistants and optical assistants in our eye centers, to in vitro fertilization specialists in our fertility clinics, financial analysts, revenue managers, pretty much everything. So on average, I handle anywhere from maybe 30 to 35 different recs or job openings at a time. And I'm just responsible for making sure that those jobs get filled as quickly as possible. So when hiring managers or a clinic sees that they have a new need for a new position and that gets approved, they then get connected with me and I kind of start searching for candidates.
Yeah, so for me, in my current role, I support the bank's senior care clients with financial preparation, screen preparation, and the proposal of financing solutions. Ultimately, my team is responsible for giving the bank's clients some money to build independent living, assisted living, or continuum care retirement communities, basically senior living. Their strategic goals, our clients, are to build these buildings that house senior citizens as they go along the health spectrum in their older ages of life. Another part of my job includes updating our loan pipeline and implementing client data into our CRM platform.
And for me, so I guess to better understand what I do, I should explain like why my position exists. Just because before COVID happened, the company I work for, they owned 4 different assisted living facilities and nursing home and skilled nursing facilities, as they call them. And before COVID, they had just let go of their chief financial officer and they were already looking for a new one. So then when COVID hit, all these new documentations and things needed to be done. So they were very short staff, and they were already behind. So they needed someone to fill a role of a staff accountant, which basically is just like a special project person. And I say special project just because it contains like multiple different things. Like, for example, today I filled out government related reporting forms and trying to help make templates for certain documents that always have to be done, like certain budget documents. So it's a lot of Excel involved, but also a lot of reporting and documentation necessary, typically at least.
Okay, the next question that we have is, so what does your day-to-day look like? Like, what are your challenges and what are your rewards? Lauren?
So my day-to-day involves a lot of different tasks. Step one in my process is usually once a job is approved and they identify a need for a new opening, I'm setting up an intake meeting with that hiring manager just to kind of learn a little bit more about the clinic and the position and what they're looking for in a candidate. Just so I know what to look for and screen for when I'm speaking to people who are interested. So I just make sure I have a good understanding of the minimum qualifications for a job, any soft skills or special knowledge that the hiring manager prefers that they have. I just capture all of those details. And then I'm just better able to speak to the position. From there, I also make sure the job description accurately reflects the scope of the job, and I get it posted to our career site so candidates can view it and start applying. Some jobs that may be more popular or just kind of less specialized in their scope, typically those get more interest and have more candidates who are applying. So for a lot of those, sometimes it really is just sorting through resumes and kind of identifying the most qualified candidates to reach out to. And I typically connect with them for a brief pre-screen and just make sure they have a good understanding of the role that they applied for. I make sure their compensation expectations align with what we would be able to offer. If they've worked for Duke before, I make sure they're eligible for rehire, and I just kind of take care of all of those details on the back end so that when they actually get sent over to the hiring manager, all they really have to worry about is just making sure they're a good fit for the job and the team. And then for roles that really don't get a lot of applicants, I do a lot of what we call direct sourcing. So I kind of act more as a headhunter and really go out and search for the talent that's needed. So I use a lot of different platforms like Indeed or LinkedIn Recruiter, and I just do different searches and try to have a high number of outbound messages to more passive candidates who may not necessarily be actively looking for a job, but if I do reach out and just make them aware, a lot of the times they want to connect and they end up being interested. So that's definitely one of the more, I would say more of a challenge, or more of the challenging part of my job is for those tougher to fill positions when you don't get applicants, maybe because they're more specialized or they have certain certifications that they're looking for. You just really have to keep searching until you find it. And another challenge I would say is when you just have a lot of openings for the same job and it's really in high demand. An example would be one I'm working on right now for our optical assistants for our eye centers. I probably have over 10 of those open right now. And of course, all of those hiring managers, you know, they're feeling the strain of a vacancy at their clinic and they want it filled immediately. But from my end, I have 10 other jobs and 10 other hiring managers who also want it filled immediately. So a lot of that is just kind of managing their expectations and just kind of being transparent with them about what I'm seeing out there in the market, in their industry, in terms of supply and demand, and just kind of making sure they have a good understanding of that. And I think you asked about rewards as well. Definitely just helping people find a job in and of itself is rewarding, just being a part of that. I know we all can relate. When we get a new job, that means a lot, not only professionally, but also just personally. So just kind of sometimes hearing candidate stories about what a new position would mean to them, and just getting to be a part of that, I find that to be really rewarding. And then also just working in healthcare, especially in the past year with the pandemic, I am not blessed to have the skill set or ability to work in a job with direct patient care, but I kind of feel like I get to have my own mark on that just by helping to keep the clinics fully staffed. Because I know if they get below a certain threshold, they're not able to stay open, and that really affects, patients' lives. So I find that rewarding.
Yeah, and so for me, my day-to-day usually involves some meetings, whether that be team meetings or client meetings, as well as time devoted to preparing PowerPoints and running financial analysis in Excel, basically some big old Excel financial models. But ultimately, a lot of my time is devoted to preparing pre-screen and screen materials that my team then uses to pitch on behalf of the client to our credit approvers and underwriters. The sales process here at the bank and my team is we get a deal in from the outside in the form of an RFP, which is a request for pricing, and we bid on a construction project essentially for the financing. A lot of this, what drives our success, will be determined based off our loan interest rate and then the term. So that's ultimately just my day-to-day. I guess some of the challenges would be some of the lagged and delayed time that I receive waiting on financial statements or just having that communication with the banker. The bankers I support are traveling throughout the United States 3 or 5 days a week. So they're not open to emails at all times, so they may be on a plane. And that just, gives me a few headaches. But I guess one of the large rewards of my job and my team is seeing a successful construction of a building go from ground up. Because when we're looking at these deals, oftentimes there's nothing on the ground. And when my team comes in and ultimately provides the financing, and 3 years later, a building's built and senior citizens are living in it, that's pretty rewarding to us.
So very similar to Spencer with regard to being in Excel, like all day long. So typically when I come into the office, because we're there 4 out of 5 days now, when I come into the office, I check my email, and there's usually already some emails from my supervisor with like certain things that need to be done. For example, like I mentioned, I had to fill out a few forms for the medical insurance, and then also there was this labor variance report that needed to be done because the system had changed at the beginning of the year, and each of the facilities had like these reports that they couldn't do anything with because they didn't have the right template for us. So every day this week I've been doing like a different facilities report in Excel. So just like Excel stuff every day. And if you need help with the if formula kind of thing, like I'm the person in the office to ask, which I guess is kind of the most challenging part, not the if formulas, but more so being the youngest in the office. I'm expected to know certain things that a lot of the other people in the office don't know, because I think the next youngest person in the office is like 54. So it's really like the expectation, the bar is like set really, really high for me all the time. And that could be like, really demanding. I mean, not demanding, but frustrating, just because I don't know everything. And when I do need help, because I'm not really familiar with a lot of health related things, because I wasn't really interested in like healthcare, like accounting kind of stuff. So it's definitely like new, like uncharted territory for me, which is the biggest, like those are the challenges. But I guess the reward is that I'm learning so much about something that I wasn't really aware of. 1, 2, I wasn't really like interested in any way, but now like this information is very relevant, especially with COVID. And then like maybe I'll put someone in a nursing home later on in life and stuff like that. But yeah.
So Diamond, you're part staff accountant, part IT specialist then?
Literally.
Thanks y'all for sharing that. Nung, I hope I pronounced that right. Do you have any questions that you want to pose? I have some that I can ask if you do not.
Yeah, I'm kind of interested in Lauren because we actually graduate with the same major and I recently graduated. I thought that my major was kind of broad or like too broad for me. And with the pandemic, I didn't get a chance to like have any internships. So I want to hear about like what she did before she got the position and what was the training process like for you, Lauren?
Yeah, that's a good question. I can definitely relate to how you feel with our majors. Sometimes I felt like it was broad as well, and I didn't really know exactly what I wanted to do with it. I would say my exposure to HR came more so from organizations that I was involved in on campus. So I first kind of learned about HR from Carolina Women in Business. And then from there, I got involved in SHRM, which is like the professional organization for HR, it's the Society for Human Resource Management. So I was involved with that for like 3 years at UNC. So that's kind of how I got directed to HR. And then I did end up doing a couple of HR internships and just really fell in love with talent acquisition. And I knew that's what I wanted to do by the time I graduated. But I think the good thing about our major, it kind of combines a lot of different disciplines. So although it's broad, it's really a good opportunity because you can do so much with it. It combines sociology, economics, a few business courses. So I think it really sets you up well for a lot of different paths.
So I'm curious, kind of in the similar vein, Spencer and Diamond, y'all graduated in the middle of the pandemic, and you might have had the opportunities to do internships, but you were entering a very bizarre workforce. I'm curious if y'all have seen things, and Lauren, you too, of course, but if y'all have seen things shift and kind of how you navigated those changes from the pandemic, and if you have any advice in that regard as well.
Yeah, I can add in here. I guess one thing that helped me transition full-time work from school would just be the presence of online class. I think I used that, I leveraged that a lot during my early days on the job. And now I can also say that, from the job seeking perspective, can also be a benefit to you. For example, my little brother, he actually just graduated this past year from UNC Charlotte. And that's one thing I tell him all the time is just leverage your online experience, because a lot of these employers are wanting to hire people. So, the pandemic created the need or eliminated the need to be physically in a location for a job. So, the presence of your online work and then your ability to go anywhere with this virtual world, makes you a candidate. The one thing I would encourage you to do, or anyone listening, is just to apply to as many jobs as possible. I know, like during my internship search while I was in school and ultimately full-time employment search, I was applying to like 50 some odd end jobs. Not saying it was going to be my career, but I wanted to get that interview experience. And which ultimately, they always say you find a diamond in a rough sometimes. I think that's what happened with me. But I got that through my willingness to apply to several different jobs that may or may not have been interesting to me, and then my willingness to go to the interview and see what the company was about. Because ultimately, I enjoy my job because the people I work with. The work is interesting, definitely. But the people around you, if you have a good team, then it's going to make all the difference in your work and professional career.
I would second everything Spencer just said. And as far as like I think the question was kind of like, did things change? Did the pandemic change things for me? And then how did I like operate that? And if so, to an extent, it kind of did because of everything happening. I knew I was supposed to go into grad school, but I almost did not. And yeah, so I ended up going, but it was really, really hard. And it wasn't like undergrad. Like, I don't know what kind of drugs grad school is on, but it was super hard for no reason. But But when I started grad school, I contacted my employer because I was supposed to start this fall. But I mean, I was supposed to start my full-time job on this date, like on this year, but I wanted to go ahead and start, and I didn't want to go to grad school anymore. But they told me that my start date was my start date, and I needed to go ahead and go to grad school in order, like, if I wanted my job, I needed to go to grad school. And it really broke my heart, and I really didn't want to do school, but I had to like operate all the resources that were around me. Like I never used the village, never used my village in that way before. So really the pandemic really like forced me to be resourceful, and to like reach out for help, because I needed so much help, like academically, mentally, physically, in every sense of the word. I needed a lot of help. So for me, I think I would just encourage people not to be afraid to like reach out to people with for help for anything, and not just like career help, because if you want to succeed in your career, and if you're thinking about grad school, if you want to succeed there, you really need to utilize your resources, and not just your like your friends or your family, but like whoever and whatever you can.
And to just add one thing, I encourage you to take a leap of faith in the job search. I mean, like us kind of touched on earlier, if something may not be as advertised or what you're wanting when you see it on the screen, just apply. I mean, the interview experience that cannot hurt. I know the program I just recently went through at Truist, we had people from all across the spectrum. We had some English majors, which I was surprised to learn, considering we're a bank. But that just goes to show you that employers out there are willing to hire people as long as they're willing to show up and do the work.
And I can speak to that even from a recruitment standpoint. I talk to hiring managers all the time, and they put such a big emphasis on soft skills and people that are willing to learn and, willing to be trained. So it's not always just the technical skills that you have currently. If you bring just a positive attitude and willingness to learn to the table, hiring managers love that as well.
Noong, anything else that you'd like to ask?
Yes, I remember Diamond just talking about the MAC program. Do you have any tips? Because I was thinking about maybe going back to school for a grad.
Yes, I did not do the MAC program at UNC. I highly encourage it, but I also encourage going where the money is, because grad school is also super expensive. So if you can apply to programs that are more like, cheaper, but also with the same value, because UNC has a really great program, but the cost that they don't really give a lot of scholarships, and the cost is very expensive with little scholarships. But there's also programs that are just as good, if not better, than UNC. So I would recommend looking at programs also that aren't necessarily centered, like made for accounting majors, because as you know, like UNC does not have accounting majors, and going into an accounting program without any accounting background is not the easiest thing to do, but is very possible. But I would recommend finding programs that are like they have curriculum set up for those who aren't accounting majors. I went to Wake, if you didn't hear that, and I had to take summer classes since I was an accounting major. So if you're interested in like doing something like that, or you want to take a longer track, so I did a 2-semester track, which is why I took summer classes. But if you wanted to, extend it out, they have programs where you can do 3 semesters, and then they'll also make sure you have an internship like while you're there. So I would recommend also going to a program that has like a high job placement rate. UNC has one. UNC Charlotte has a great one. Wake, of course. There's just so many wonderful accounting programs, and I just would recommend not just looking at UNC, even though they have like a really great program. They're not the only ones out there. There's so many other great ones.
Thank you.
So y'all have touched on it a little bit, and especially with that answer, Diamond. But can y'all tell us a little bit more about the path that you took to get to your career? That I feel like you really covered it there, Diamond, unless you want to add anything to that. And just kind of like what that looked like. Spencer, you talked a little bit about applying for all of the jobs that were of interest so that you got a lot of experience. What else was part of that process for you?
Since I was just talking about, I'm sorry, Spencer.
Yeah, go ahead.
Since I was just talking about, I'll go ahead. Basically, for me, since I was enrolled in the program, the master's program at Wake, I knew that most people going into their like role in the fall, they would just study all summer for their CPAs. But I knew I wanted to work during the summer just to make sure that I could pay for my exams and things like that. So during the spring, I spoke with people in the career services at Wake Forest, and they knew of the company that I worked at, and they knew that they were hiring for like people like me. So I just utilized that network in this circumstance. Sorry, but yes.
And then for me, so after applying to, I'm telling you, countless internships while I was in school and going to countless interviews, I was fortunate enough to land an offer at SunTrust, which was one of the heritage banks before the SunTrust BB&T merger into Truist. And there I was an intern, and that experience led to a full-time offer with SunTrust. But literally like 2 weeks after I landed the job at SunTrust going into my senior year, they announced the merger. I was obviously a little overwhelmed and didn't know what my future looked like. But fortunately enough for me, Truist said that they would honor my offer. They did say it looked a little different because both heritage banks had a similar 10 to 12 month training program. At SunTrust, it was a wholesale development program, and at Truist or BB&T, it was a leadership development program. So this was a program that was 10 to 12 months, exposed me to different geographies and lines of businesses within the bank, and also connected me with peers and teammates, from all across the country. I had some colleagues from University of Florida all the way from, Syracuse. So it was cool to connect with people from different backgrounds in this program. And from there, we just went on a journey, 12 months. And then after that, I was placed into the senior care team. And this was just based off bank demand, bank fit, and then a little bit about my performance within the program itself.
So for me, I knew I wanted to do talent acquisition when I graduated. And so I ended up, for my first 2 years out of school, I was working with a recruiting firm. So it was a smaller company, and maybe like 2 months after I started there, I got placed on the healthcare team, which is how I kind of got started with that. And I think the good thing about working in an agency setting, you're partnering with different companies who are obviously coming to you for help because they can't fill their positions. They're not having applicant flow. So it really forces you to really develop your skills and learn how to be the best recruiter you can be, because you're really going out and being a headhunter. And even my old managers would always tell me, if you can do this type of recruitment, going back to a corporate setting will be a piece of cake when you really are just screening applicants. So I think that just helped me develop my skill set. Also during that time, I worked on getting my SHRM certified professional certification, because I knew ultimately I wanted to be back in a corporate environment. And so I just wanted to keep my skills up and kind of be more well-rounded in HR as a whole. And so from there, it just kind of led to this position, me taking it to a different setting, but still staying in healthcare.
Noong, any other questions that you have? I want to make sure that we're addressing what you want to hear.
Right now, I haven't came up with anything yet.
Cool. So I'm curious how your current positions, or for you, Diamond, your new position at PwC, how they align with your undergrad degrees from Carolina, if they do, perhaps not at all, and kind of what drew you to the job based on your undergrad experience.
Okay.
As far as, I'm so sorry, Spencer. As far as me, unfortunately, like my undergrad degree does not necessarily correlate directly to what I'm doing now and what I'll be doing later. However, it did lay a lot of foundation with regard to, I guess, the soft skills and like what I learned in the business school and like just basic kind of things. Like just basic classes and just like the idea of networking and like workshops, that like all the things I did during undergrad are definitely like showing themselves like underlying in certain things that I do in certain day to day. Even like though I didn't have a lot of Excel experience before, now I do. It's still like there was foundation laid to a certain extent. So unfortunately, no, they did not align directly to my undergrad degree, but I am very appreciative to Carolina for laying a lot of the groundwork and a lot of the foundation to help me be able to learn it later on.
Spencer, do you want to go next? Sorry for making things awkward, y'all.
No, it's good. I didn't want to chime in and cut Diamond off again. So for me, my current role as a senior care coverage analyst definitely aligns with my education. So I was a business admin major at Carolina with an emphasis in real estate and a minor in city and regional planning. My educational background just in real estate just prepped me with the business fundamentals that I need to know to understand, what a business is and their financial statements show on when I receive them to do my role. In addition, I worked at the GAA during my time there. So shout out to Anna Brooks and everyone else at the GAA. But that was a 4-year journey that I just, transitioned really throughout the GAA and interacted with and connected with many different people that I think aided me in my skill set. And one thing I'd throw out there, I learned about my job through career fair at Carolina. I don't know how it is in this pandemic-stricken world, but career fairs, I know your local chamber of commerces may have them, are a good way to get out and just network, meet people, and learn about different opportunities that are in your geography.
And so my major does relate to HR in a lot of ways too. They do throw in a lot of classes like sociology, psychology, organizational development, and a few business classes that kind of relates to HR. So I got exposure that way. But again, I would say for me, it was mostly just through on-campus involvement in organizations. That's really where I made the most connections in my field and got information about internships. So I would say that was the most beneficial for me.
Thanks, y'all. That is all of the questions that we have. Ning, I'm gonna hit you up one more time if you have any other questions for the team.
I'm kind of curious, did any of you guys relocate? If so, can you tell me more about your experiences and what kind of struggles you faced?
Spencer, why don't you start, since I know you have a journey about your relocation?
Yeah, I can kick us off. So after we graduated in May 2020, my job came up and told us that it was going to be 100% remote. And they said to the end of the year, but obviously they extended it until May. My job was going to be in Charlotte, so I was really looking forward to that. But I decided not to move down to Charlotte since we were remote and moved back in with my parents. I'm very fortunate. It was a great time, getting to spend that amount of time with them. But as a college grad, I always said, I don't think I'll ever move back in with my parents. And there I was the first year. And that was kind of, it was a blessing, but it was also a struggle. I mean, you could think I was in a college setting and then went to a small town with my parents and I had few friends that were still in the area. So a lot of my time, quite frankly, was work, sleep, and golf. I mean, that's all I really did. But then most recently, I relocated to Atlanta, Georgia, specifically, I guess, within the past week and a half. It's been an adjustment. out on my own, flight or fight. I guess what it is, got to make all my own food, make all my decisions. But it's been really good. I guess that the time that I spent at home was the time, for me to prepare and take on this challenge of living on my own, because it's not easy. I mean, you get thrown with your rent, your utility, your food, going to work. I mean, it can wear on you mentally. But just life's about change, and I really embrace that.
So just to reiterate what Spencer said, I would encourage anyone to, like, if you have family and you're able to move back home and it's feasible, don't feel bad about that, because it's tough out here. Rent is hard. Like Spencer said, managing responsibilities and bills is hard. So when I first graduated, that's what I did. I moved back home and I was there for a little over a year. The job I took was in downtown Raleigh. And I'm also from a smaller town that really didn't have a lot of opportunities there for me. So I was just commuting back and forth, but I did it to save money. I found out I got sick of that and decided to relocate right outside of Raleigh, actually in February 2020, right before all of this happened. And we went right back to a remote workplace. So if I had known that in hindsight, I probably still would have been home now saving money. But it was interesting just to make that transition from being in the office for a little over 2 years and now being remote for the past year. It's been interesting, but I would say just do what works best for you. If you have people that can help support you, do so. And, if you have to relocate, you can make the best of that too.
Unfortunately, I did not get the chance to go back home at all, and I have regretted it and wanted to cry about it ever since. But after we graduated in May, I moved to Winston to go to school, and then I just moved to Charlotte this past July because I'll be working in Charlotte in the fall. But I personally do not enjoy paying bills and giving all my money to other people. It makes me very sad. So if you really do actually, like they said, if you have the opportunity and the resources to work, I'm not work from home, but to stay at home or just stay where you don't have to pay as much rent and all the bills, I would tend to recommend just because it's less stress, because being in an at-home environment is not, being in your own space is nice, but just being able to save that money and like put it to better use later on, you would appreciate that better and you would enjoy that much better than just trying to hurry up and get out on your own. It's not that necessary. If you can resist, please.
So y'all are saying adulthood is not all that it's cracked up to be? I agree. I'm 11 years out now, and I still wholeheartedly agree. Nung, any other questions that you have?
No questions. Thank you guys so much for sharing your experiences.
All right, then we'll wrap up. Lauren, Spencer, Diamond, thank you all so much for sharing and being here tonight. Nung, thank you for attending with us. We appreciate everyone who is listening in on the recording, and thanks for being here. Have a great night.